Welcome
to
back.
One Take Old Movie Reviews. I'm Barbara.
And I'm David. And tonight we are reviewing The Glenn Miller Story, a 1953 movie starring
Jimmy Stewart, and June Allyson. I have to say, June Allyson said that this was one of her favorite 3 movies that she'd done. And that James Stewart and June Allyson starred opposite each other because of their chemistry on camera in 3 movies, because of their chemistry on camera.
Right.
Yeah.
It also starred Harry Morgan.
Yeah.
And there were some cameos by some famous musicians, including Louis Armstrong and a drummer by the name of Gene Krupa. So that's kind of the lineup. The story is it's a kind of a take on the life of Glenn Miller. He was a struggling trombone player who was looking to find his own sound, and he kind of knew what he wanted, but he also wanted his own band. So he spent some time in looking for that. He also ended up getting a commission.
He volunteered for the war in 1942. He wanted to jazz up some of the music. He went in as a captain. They turned him down for the Navy, and he wrote a letter to General Charles Young, Brigadier General Charles Young, who accepted him into the Army as a captain and put him in. He ended up being the commander of the I think it was Air Force band. Anyway, he ended up being a major when he died.
And he was it's an interesting story. His plane was lost, however, over the English Channel in 1944.
And I don't think they ever found it. From what I understand, they never found that plane. So
we have some interesting insights into that movie. One that I wanted to mention before I forget: James Stewart was about 6'3", and June Allyson was 5'1". So there's quite a difference in heights in there during the show. You can see they're quite a bit difference in height. I did notice too that James Stewart, he had a 55-year career in the film. He did about 80 films, and he was listed as 3rd on the all-time list of famous male actors.
yeah,
Behind Humphrey Bogart.
Humphrey Bogart was number 1,
and Cary Grant.
Cary Grant was number 2, and we like those guys. Yeah.
And you had an interesting tidbit about James Stewart and the trombone that he has to play in the movie.
Oh yeah, he took lessons to try to learn how to play the trombone so he could do it, in the movie. But his tutor said, never mind. So he just mimed it accurately, and his tutor actually played his parts in the movie. So, and I had to say another thing. James Stewart invested in the movie. He ended up making over $1 million on this movie.
Really?
I mean, in the residuals. Yeah.
That's one thing I didn't know. One thing I also wanted to mention about James Stewart is he was a decorated military veteran.
Oh, yes.
Actually, quite decorated. He was a combat pilot. He earned 2 Distinguished Flying Crosses. He earned 4 Air Medals, the French Croix de Guerre with Bronze Palm, and he retired as an Air Force Brigadier General. Quite impressive.
Yeah. And who would have ever thought about that about James Stewart? I mean, he's just an actor, or whatever. But anyway.
A successful career as both an actor and as a military man.
Yeah.
And one thing I found out about June Allyson is she began her career as a dancer.
Yeah.
And she won a Golden Globe for her role in a movie called Too Young to Kiss.
And
then finally, I just want to mention too, Harry Morgan was the sidekick to Jimmy Stewart in the movie. And you probably know him pretty well from both Dragnet, he starred in that, and as Colonel Potter in MASH. He was known that for, and his career spanned 6 decades.
Wow. Yeah. And I just wanted to say I learned a little bit about the real Glenn Miller, and he was not the warm, fuzzy kind of guy that James Stewart portrayed him as. He was a very strict perfectionist, and he even, from what I understand, he even fired one of his closest friends from the band for just being late. So, I mean, he expected shined shoes and being on time and, anyway, and when he volunteered for the military, he was making, I think the previous year he'd made over $750,000, and that was, not $15,000 to $20,000 a week, the article said, and and then he volunteered for the military. So
And one of the things, the big band sound, of course, was really big in the 1950s.
yeah,
And if you heard any of Glenn Miller's music, you would probably recognize it.
yeah.
He was well known for Moonlight Serenade and String of Pearls, among
Yeah.
others.
Yeah, and his little brown jug really was a, but and Chattanooga Choo Choo. Anyway, and the thing is that it is said that the death of Glenn Miller became the end of the big band era. I mean, began the ending of the big band era. In the 50s, it was, a little bit different, more, different type of bands, I think. But anyway, that's what.
So then it's time for us to give it our
Oh,
rating.
yeah. I forgot.
Have you thought about what you'd like to rate it?
Well, I think it was a 5 because it was good. I mean, it was good. It was something that, my grandkids could watch with me. It was in color. They would appreciate that. It was good.
Very good. And I thought James Stewart, for not being a natural musician,
Yeah,
played it very well.
yeah,
Harry Morgan was very good, and June Allyson. They were all great in the movie, and all the cameos by the famous musicians.
yeah.
It was very enjoyable. So I think it was both of us would give us a 5.
And what I liked about the movie was they sort of made it a love story between Glenn Miller and his wife, which I don't know if that was the case or not, but it was a real sweet love story too. So, yeah.
So that's it for this time. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on
Okay.
One
I'm going to take old movie
reviews.
videos.